see that. So let's look at our data set here, and we'll talk a little bit about the impact that these inquiries are genuinely having here. All right, so let me know if you can see my spreadsheet here. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it okay. All right, I made it as large as I could in terms of the font. And so let me X out or get rid of these names so we're not, so I took out the ID, the client ID and the name of the client here in columns A and B. And so in this data set here, you see we've got, we got a header line. So we got 155 clients in this kind of data set. And what we did was we looked at and measured, there's also the difference in the days. So you can see that, on average, the second credit report was pulled little over 2 days after the original data set. And I don't remember, I think we had to go through about 450 to 500 of these in order to kind of land on 155, so to speak. So for about every 500 files that we went through, we were getting roughly 150 to 160 kind of units to put into the data pool. And this is kind of one of those tranches. And so you can see here that we measure the score at the beginning, 690, and then the score on the second. So column F here, and let's make it, kind of this, light gray background, is the first credit report, the starting score, right? And then column G, we'll make it kind of a light blue, is the second report. In this case, the second report, happened 2 days later. You can see we went from a 690 to a 669 in 2 days. In this case, you can see that we pulled the second report the same day. So there was a difference of 0 days between score number 1 and report number 1 and report number 2. And when you scroll down to the bottom, you can see that on average here, there was just over 2 days difference between the scores. You can also see in column H that this is our decrease in the score. So at the bottom of this, you can see we had one client who went from a 760 score to a 715 score. They dropped 45 points in 2 days. We had a client who went from a 780 to a 739. They dropped 41 points in 2 days. And then when you scroll to the top of this, and this gets to that question, I'm going to hide these first few people here for a minute, and I'll tell you about them. So at the top of this, you can see we have several people that had 0-point decreases. So in this batch of 155 people, you had 18 people who had a 0-point difference, right? So, and if you look at that, think about that, and then look at the number of inquiries. Look at this column next to it. These are the number of inquiries that were associated with that 0-point impact. So we had one person here with 5 new inquiries, 0 points, 4 new inquiries, 0-point difference, 7 new inquiries, 0-point difference. We had 2 people down here with 10 new inquiries. Their FICO score did not change, 756, and 4 days later they had a 756. And so we have 18 of them that saw no drop whatsoever. And again, in terms of the number of inquiries, if you can see all the way down here at the bottom, it's an average of 6. For that data pool where there was a 0-point impact, that data pool, small as it may be, it's only 18 people, there was on average 6 new inquiries placed on their credit profile between report number 1 and report number 2. So these were all clients that were in our hybrid max plan, where it's kind of a go after as much money as you can get. So these are all aggressive clients who wanted as much money as possible, because remember, the number of inquiries pulled, this is only on Experian. So when you say there was 6 or 7 inquiries, there was another 6, 7, 8 of them on the other bureaus, but they're spread out most of the time. Whereas in this case, there was only 4 on Experian, right? And whereas in this case, there was 10 on Experian, right? You've got some people in geographic regions where, it's more likely, this person here that had 4 inquiries, I don't know, they could be in Atlanta, Georgia, where it's more common for lenders to pull Equifax, because Equifax's worldwide headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia. That's possible. I don't know, right? But, either way, you've got all those variables. And so we measured all of this with the goal of getting down here to the bottom and saying, hey, when it's all said and done, this is why you hear us say, on average, you'll see about an 11 or 12 point drop potentially in your FICO scores. These are all clients that you know got their funding right away within 30 days. These are not, these are not people that, were, these FICO scores aren't, from month 1 to month 6. Obviously, in order for a study like this, it's got to be an isolated situation where you're doing multiple credit card or unsecured applications in a short window of time, and then measuring the before and after. So again, this funding average of $44,000, that's not how much our clients are getting on average. That's for this data set in one round of applications. That's how much they're averaging. And again, you can see that not all of this is filled out. This, if it was a 0, there'd be a 0 in this column or in this cell right here. So some of the funding numbers did not get filled out in their entirety. Now, this person here, you'll see whoever this is on line number 79, they literally did 5 applications with Experian, and they literally got $0 in funding, because every once in a while somebody goes through a funding plan and they don't get any financing. So if you scroll through here, you'll see a true picture of the really good and the really bad. You can see there's a second person with 0 funding. Here's a third person with 0 funding. There's a fourth person. So these ones where there's nothing, we don't know. We didn't go back and look at the funding number. So if it's blank, we don't know if it was 44,000 or 0 or 100,000. Whereas the other ones that are filled in, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people out of 155, whatever the math is on that, guys, got 0 funding. So that does happen, right? So in other words, there are going to be times where your clients get to funding and something happens and they get no approvals. It happens. You can see that 4 out of 155, it doesn't happen very often, right? But it does happen. I could probably sneak in here and take a look at, the reason why that's not there. The reason why this one's got 0, it doesn't have anything, is because we don't have a client ID here. So the person that went and looked it up didn't know how to look up. So whereas if you see here, when I click on these other cells here, if I unblock this client, the person I had going in and looking up the funding, they didn't have a client ID, so they didn't know how to look up this particular client, whereas all these others, they could. So all that being said, that's kind of a sidebar. Back to our discussion. We found that for this batch of clients, that the FICO score drop was on average 11.25 points. So it would be accurate to tell your prospects that when they go into an aggressive funding plan where we go after multiple credit facilities with our unsecured lenders, that on average, they see about an 11 to 12 point drop in their FICO scores. Now let's go a little bit further with this. Let's talk about why some of these people got 30 to 45 point drops. And then let's talk about these guys up here that I ignored before. Because remember, David came off mute and said, hey, you've got compromised data. If you're allowing for any change in the credit report, from report number 1 to report number 2, then you're compromised from the very get-go. Well, we had an asterisk beside that rule where we allowed a certain number of these clients who had a new trade line. This is related to your question, Robert. We allowed some of our clients who had a new trade line that showed up on the second report to actually be included in this data set. We decided to do that because we put the trade line there and it tells a little bit of a story. So let's look at this real quickly. So you've got 9 people here out of 155 whose scores went up. And this is an important point to kind of take away. It is not mathematically possible for you to add inquiries and for your score to go up. If nothing else changes on your credit report, you could not add inquiries, pull a credit FICO score, and see your score go up. That cannot happen. The reason that happened with these 9 cases is you'll see over here in column O, we'll make this green. In column O, one of our credit cards from Barclays, it says, did the Barclays credit card report, yes or no? You'll notice that all 9 of these people who saw their FICO scores go up, all of them had a new Barclays credit card that was reporting on the second credit report. It was placed there by us. So we said, let's leave it in the study and let's learn from it. So all 9 of them had a new personal credit card that showed up on their credit report, and their score, this person went from a 705 to a 706. This person went from a 731 to a 793. So I want to stop and ask a question or two here. For those 9 people, there was an average increase in their FICO score of 20 points. It's kind of hard to see this font at the bottom. But let me ask a couple of you, maybe Carlo, maybe Barbara. Have you ever been told that when you add a new credit card or a new trade line, that it either can hurt your score or that can temporarily lower your FICO score? Have you ever heard that or been told that, Carlo?
Yeah, I've actually heard that a lot, that there is a temporary drop in your score, and then after a few months it will bounce up, but never really got confirmation if that's accurate or not.
Okay, all right. Kavika and Lisa, I got you on camera as well. Either of you ever heard that, or have you ever felt like or believed that adding something new is a bad thing? Either of you, yes or no? Lisa says no. How about you, Kavika?
I think my knowledge was just associated with the increase, not so much with the account itself.
Okay. All right. No worries. No worries. So there's long been a belief, and it's not all wrong. Okay. It's not 100% incorrect, or it's not 100% wrong, but right. There's long been a belief that when you add new personal credit cards, it's a bad thing or that it's going to drop your score, right? And that's not always the case. And obviously, here's some empirical data that proves it, right? We're not saying that it's 100% of the time a good thing, right? But we do know that the net impact is certainly positive in most cases for the FICO score. And in nearly every case, whether it's a increase or a decrease to a FICO score, we know it's a net positive benefit to make the quality of the credit profile more robust. And by doing so, we're talking about when we'd like to see most of our clients have at least 50,000 or in many cases $100,000 in available personal credit. We also want them to get 50,000 to $100,000 or more in available business credit so they can build their businesses. But to have a healthy, robust, high quality credit profile, having more available credit and healthier credit lines it does lead to a more healthy credit profile. And if you're doing those things and building a more healthy credit profile, then the FICO score will follow. The score will be better as a byproduct of you helping that client to have a more healthy and a higher quality credit profile. So in these scenarios, that one additional credit card allowed their scores to go up on average 20 points. All right. Now let's scroll down to the bottom here and let's talk about these people who saw a large drop. So Asante, what do you think happens when the average person sees a 10 or 12 point drop, but now this person sees 45 and this person sees 41? You've got, what is it? You got 6 people, 6 out of 155, whatever that math is probably 8 or 9%. You got 6 people who saw a 30 plus point drop. Do you think they're just unlucky? Do you think it's the luck of the draw? Or is it possible, Asante, that there might be some things about their credit profile that cause them to be more prone to those dips being more severe? What do you think, or what's your guess on this, or what do you know about it, Asante?
Yeah, I think it's the latter in what you just said. I think there's some other things in the credit report that caused that huge decrease. I don't think inquiries alone did it,
Okay.
from my experience.
Okay. All right. And Chris, let me tap into your expertise and your background, right? Does looking at this, I think you came on a little bit late. You might have caught some of this. You might caught up most of it. I don't remember. But does most of this make sense, or is this insightful? And do you have any thoughts on maybe why this subsegment of the audience or of the data set seem to be impacted in almost an unfair way or more negatively than the larger data set. You have any thoughts or insights on that, Chris?
Yeah,
Tom?
appreciate it, Tom. Man, I would say first and foremost, the information that you're sharing is great info. And most of the time, when I see a decrease in the score like this, it's not per se the inquiries. It's because the credit file is thin and the age, the decreases in the age of the file because you're adding new accounts and it's decreasing the age, and
Yep.
it's not more or less the inquiries that's having the effect.
Dude, you're spot on. I haven't showed you the rest of the content, but I'm going to show you in a minute. That's exactly what's going on here. And so,
Yeah, that's what I
for
tell
the
most of my clients when they do something, because like you said, it's a big myth about inquiries. And I always tell my clients, hey, if your score is XYZ, inquiries account for 10%. So there's no way your score dropped 100 points,
spot
or
on.
what have you because of inquiries. It's your 9 times out of 10, it's the age of the overall credit file that decreases the score, but you'll get it back over time with the utilization being low and the payment history, being added to it over the course, of a few months.
Absolutely. And in the case of, say, a Lincred client, we can go right back in and remove those inquiries as well and immediately pull away that impact. But if you want to take away right from today's conversation, we got 20 minutes left, but if you want to take away, one of those takeaways is that you see about an 11 to 12 point drop on average when your client goes through kind of an aggressive unsecured funding plan with multiple applications with multiple lenders. That's correct. But then of course we're talking about the highs and lows right now. A couple of you just signed on late, and I think I might have left you hanging in the waiting room for a while. So sorry about that. But we're talking about the impact that inquiries have on FICO scores, and this is kind of an empirical data set that we have that shows that the impact is not very grand, so to speak. And you've got people who saw, you got 6 people out of 155 that saw a 30 point drop. So let's stay with this theme here and look at what's going on. So when we come over here and we look at you'll notice that we haven't finished the work, by the way, on this, but I want to take you over here let's go back to the top here. So if we're looking at these clients at the top here who saw a increase in their scores, 731 to 793 and 719 to 728. What we did in column Q and R is we logged the average number of total trade lines in their credit report right here, total number open and closed accounts, and then a total number of open trades. And you'll see if we kind of look at the total number of open trades, you're averaging maybe around 9 here, it says, and total number of trades open and closed, you're around 27. So for those people that had kind of the good thing happen to them, right, you've got 9 and 27 on average. And we scroll down to the bottom, the people that kind of look like they got the raw end of the deal, you start to look here and you go, wait a minute, there were 6 of them that had a 30 point drop, right? So that's these 6 right here. You got an average of only 4 open trade lines and an average of just 7 total trade lines. So you can see there's quite a difference. There's a stark difference between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. And just like Chris said, it goes to the depth of the credit profile. We sometimes call them thin files. When you've only got, for example, this person here that's only got 2 trade lines opened and closed together, that's a very thin file. Someone with only 4 or 5, those are very thin files. There's not a lot of depth to the credit report. Whereas if you scroll up here to the people that didn't have those inquiries have such a negative impact, you got 9 and 8, and you got 11 and 19, and 6 and 13, and 10 and 57. So there's a lot more depth. So, some of these things about building quality credit you can do in a year's time, but you can't build the age, over a 12-month window of time. You can start the process the right way, and sometimes you can fix some of the errors that have been made previously. Okay, but there's only so much you can do, right? And so age takes time, right? And we've talked about authorized users and how they're not quite as awesome as they used to be because nobody's getting fooled anymore by authorized users like they were, back in the day. So they're cool and they can help you, but they're not doing what they used to. But so